Hey everybody, this is R Rider, and today's January the 9th. I'm going to ride up to the mountains today, towards the mountains in my FJ Cruiser. I wanted to do this on my motorcycle, but my first attempt didn't go too well, and I've ordered a new mount for my camera so that I can get the camera on the outside of the windshield where the video won't look so wavy. And also, our weather's supposed to turn bad today. It's supposed to rain and then sleet and then snow later this evening, so if I do get caught out in that weather, I don't want to get caught on it on my motorcycle. But also, I think I can give you a better sense of the roadways that I use to get to the mountains, and then later show you some of the North Georgia mountains by motorcycle. One of the things I want to talk about today is where I am in my video blogging from the motorcycle. I did do a second session on the motorcycle, which was to show what I'm going to show today, which is the route to the North Georgia mountains. But the problem was that I was videotaping through a plastic windscreen on my motorcycle, and the video looked like it was wavy and underwater and really was not the quality that I want to present. So today, as you know, I'm videotaping from my FJ Cruiser, and what I've done is ordered a better mount, and I'm going to mount the camera on the outside of the windscreen. The camera I'm using is a Kodak ZI-8, which is an HD camera, but it's inexpensive, and in fact the price I found was very low. I don't know if they're replacing it by another model, but the reason I like this camera is it's got an external microphone jack, which is rare in an inexpensive camera. And so that was an important feature for me, and given what I paid for the camera, I'm happy to put it on the outside of a windscreen and let it get maybe dinged and hit by some dust and debris, because at the end of the day, $120 for a HD video camera is about as cheap as it gets, other than on a phone or something like that. So this camera takes very good pictures, and I think it's we'll get some good video as long as we're not on the inside of the windscreen. Part of my route to North Georgia is a busy interstate, which I'm getting on right now, I-75, which runs from Atlanta north and south. North is Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is a true busy piece of U.S. interstate, and it's a major commercial corridor and residential vein for Atlanta on the west side of the city, and not my favorite kind of riding, although I've done it, and I'm comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, if I didn't have to get on 75, generally speaking, I wouldn't do it that much. And the roadway that's coming up, I've talked about in my written blog, which is southeasternmotorider.com on WordPress. 575 is interstate as well, but it doesn't really feed toward a major city, and therefore it doesn't have as much truck traffic as 75 does. I've kind of found that the trucks don't really bother me particularly. The amount of traffic and whether it's windy is a factor in my riding, but the trucks and cars are a fact of life. I've gotten used to that, and I really haven't found that the truck blast is necessarily something that bothers me too much. In fact, it really hasn't been a factor. The number one thing I've found to be a factor this winter is the cold first, or obviously, but I've got the gear for that. But the one factor that has really been probably my greatest concern is high wind, which we get whenever a front comes through, or everybody gets when we shift from a low pressure situation to a high pressure situation. We get a lot of wind with that front, and that happened to me on my last ride, and to be honest, it was concerning. The wind gusts were so strong and so random, and from so many different opposing directions that I couldn't really settle into that, and after a while really didn't feel safe on the interstate, and that's probably in part due to my inexperience, but also too, I mean, when you feel unsafe and you feel like you're going to get blown into an opposing lane, it begins to affect your riding confidence. It begins for me to affect my cornering and my desire to lean the bike over when I'm being blown around. And after a while it really kind of got on my nerves, and I actually exited the expressway much sooner than I would have. Here we are getting on 575, which is again a really nice piece of roadway for motorcycling. But back to the wind thing, as you know, I've just started riding over the past few months, and I feel like I've gained a lot of experience already because I've been riding in the winter, and those conditions are just, I think, more difficult than the summer. I think the summer, the one factor will be the heat, but other than that, the clothing can be a little lighter, and the amount of gear that I feel like I have to take could be less. But in the winter, it's, you know, full gear, gloves, hood underneath the helmet, and still with all the gear on, there's no way that you're not consuming a lot of body energy by maintaining the temperature of your body. And so what I find is that by the time I get to the mountains, which is about a 2-hour ride to really get to where I like to go, so 2 hours each way if it's a day trip, that's 4 hours in the cold just to get to where I want to really be. And I've done it so far, and I feel like I've gained a lot of experience. As I've mentioned before, I've ridden about 5,000 miles, and I'm not 5,000, 2,000 miles in a very short period of time on my bike. And that's not a bad amount of experience for, you know, just a few weeks. I've had a lot of incidences along the way that every rider's experience, and I've learned a lot, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that I'd like to probably trailer my bike part of the way up to the mountains, and then spend my energy on the part of the trip that you know, I really set out for, which was the mountain riding. And so I've looked at a trailer that would accommodate my motorcycle and would accommodate my camping gear and firewood and the things that I'd like to take with me as I go up to the mountains, and not haul them on my bike. I did, obviously not firewood, but I did take a camping trip on my bike. It was very cold, but more importantly, when I had a lot of gear on a fairly light bike, and I'm not sure I was really that crazy about that. I love to camp and I love to ride my bike, but this FJ Cruiser is, you know, a great vehicle for camping. I can get down, you know, Forest Service roads, and I can carry extra gear with me, trailer the bike, and then pull it off and go riding. Another thing I've found about this riding experience up to the mountains is that sometimes, as I said, you just find yourself in situations where you're on the expressway, you've had a long day, you're tired, the weather changes for the worse, and you're suddenly thinking about, you know, I just want to get home and be safe and end this ride. And when you're on a motorcycle and you're not trailering your bike part of the harder distances, then, you know, you really don't have a choice but to stick with it. I know some purist riders will say, well, it's not a real ride, or it's not a purist experience to just trailer your bike part of the way. But fact is, at this point in life, I'm really not too worried about what other people think too much, and I'm going to do what I think's best for me. And I've just simply found the combination of heavy gear and a motorcycle, at least a smaller motorcycle, it's doable, but it's not that great.